Hey guys, how's it going and welcome back. So today I want to talk to you about converting Dovetail to Picatinny scope mount adapters. Okay, now more and more we're seeing that everyday life is getting Weaver and Picatinny happy, and we are having a harder and harder time getting scopes that come with rings or optics that come with rings that have Dovetail on them. So we got to convert this stuff. Now, on one of my air guns, actually one of my Dianas, I put on a Leapers 3x12x40 adjustable optical scope, and it came with Leapers Picatinny mounts. Now, that particular scope was on a different air gun, and that was fine, right? But I needed to shift it to my Diana, right? Now, my Diana only has Dovetail. This ended up being trying out these things once again, which I picked up a long time ago and are not worth the amount of money that it cost. Well, they're not even worth the money it cost to manufacture them, even in bulk. These are a Dovetail to Picatinny adapter, but as you can see, it's 2 screws and it's like a pre-molded thing, okay? Garbage. I have not found a Dovetail yet I can slide these things onto to make use of them. Maybe one day, you never know, I might get my money's worth. But for now, it's a big rip-off scam. So, and there are many regular companies that actually sell these chintzy things too. So stay away from this style, because even trying to hammer them on ain't gonna work. You're gonna wreck your gun, okay? So, there are some solutions out there. Now, I am not bringing a gun on screen today, or I got to put up with the YouTube police when I upload this and say, gunshot in a safer environment, and then fight with them to get my monetization proper on it. So, I have a solution to that that's going to work even better and gives you some other options. That's right here on screen. Now, this is where it's going to be a little difficult probably. There we go. You see these adapters? Now, they have listed in here which one's Dovetail or not, because you can go Picatinny to Dovetail, or you can go the other way, Dovetail to Picatinny, which is on here. Now this is at airgunsource.ca, which is fine. I love these guys. Now, how much you pay for these things depends on how much you want to spend. But these are some really solid lock-up style mounts, which are really nice and good quality. Now, if we scoot over to DL air guns, DL air gun. Now, DL air gun also has some adapters by many different companies. Okay. Now, BKL. Now, I've used BKL scope mounts before. I've never used their adapters, so I can't swear to them. But they're kind of like one of these prefab things where nothing gets to move loosely. And as you can see, these are on screen. Okay, these are kind of really cool. And BKL usually, in my experience anyways from the past of using their mounts, at least in their scope rings, I've never had a problem sliding a set onto a rail and locking them down. And when they lock, they stay. But these, I'm not too sure of how they are. You'd have to check online reviews to see if people have had problems with them or not. But that's just one style there. And BKL is pretty famous for doing this style of a setup. Now, there was on here, and you got to watch your rail adapters too, and I'm going to talk a little tiny bit about that, but I'm going to do a full-fledged video about scope ring heights. Why you got to be careful with how much height you bring your scope off the top. Okay, so, just checking. Okay, here's one by Leapers. You can go through the entire website yourself later. I'm just showing you a couple things. Now, this is a pretty cool mount system. Now, as you can see when you look at the right angle here, that's a bar that will actually physically, as soon as you take the screws all the way out, that bar comes right off. these are the best style, not necessarily that look, but they have other styles, different looks, obviously, okay? But that's the best style of a converter kit to go Dovetail to Picatinny, because the bar is removable, so therefore it gives you lots of playroom, because there's always that plus and minus fudge room with an 11mm dovetail from one manufacturer to another on their guns and how they cut them. Some cut them shallower, some cut them deeper, some it might be like 11 point whatever millimeters, not right dead on at 11. Nothing in life is perfect. This is why you need this style of a mount where the bar can come off, so you have that fudge room plus or minus so that you can actually get this sucker clamped on so that now you can use your optics. The problem with all the optics stuff nowadays is that it is all coming, like if you get scope rings with your scope, it's going to have weaver mounts likely, okay? Unless it's a really crummy scope like a cheap Tasco 3x9, well, they still come with dovetails, as we found out, because I bought one for 69 bucks on sale at Canadian Tire, thinking, well, I'll throw that on my QB, it's a cheap scope, but it's 3x9, I could still, you know, go pest controlling with that, or small game hunting. Oh, wow, you know, problem is fixed parallax, and, you know, to be honest, guys, I'm actually done with fixed parallax scopes, and as soon as I can get the money to replace the remaining 3 scopes sitting on those rifles, and I still got to buy more scopes yet, those scopes are going to be hauled off, and I don't know what I'm going to do with them, but they're all fixed parallax, and because of the way the yardages are preset, they're nothing but a pain in the neck, and I'm getting tired of fighting with this sort of thing. I want to be able to have everything set, go, done, and adjust. Okay, cool. I'm at 50 yards now. I'm at 25. I'm at 10 yards. And I just have to worry about resighting in my gun for different distances, right? And that's less hassle. And I never have to worry about missing my target, you know, because of parallax thing. And I have a video about scopes, so don't worry. And we'll be talking more about parallax scopes, fixed versus adjustable optical in another video. Now, as far as height go, when you get into these adapters, you shouldn't have to worry about too much. If you're using a bit of a tall base adapter, and let's say you got a 32mm bell on your scope, then you want to use a standard height ring, unless you absolutely need to get that extra height. But what you do have to watch is the height. Do not have a small bell too far above your barrel. Otherwise, you're going to run out of elevation adjustment, okay? And it can happen, trust me. I have one gun on the wall that has some super high risers on them, but hey, they were cheap, they work, and I can dial the gun into 25 yards, no big deal. Eventually, when I replace that scope, those rings are going bye-bye too, because I'm just going to get a much higher quality scope with different rings, and we'll go from there. But it is, to go past 25 yards, it's going to be really tricky to dial in my elevation, because the rings are so tall that that particular bell size is too high above the rifle barrel. So for me to get around that and use the same rings, I need a scope with like a 40mm or a 50mm bell to get the bell as close as possible. Your bottom edge of your bell has to be very close to your barrel to get the most access to elevation out of it as you can. Okay, windage is not an issue, it's the elevation issue. Now, we ran into this with my Diana Trail Scout 22 caliber when we were trying to go for 73 yards. We did make 50. Yes! Even though we didn't hit the bullseye, we didn't care. We just hit 50 yards. We could have, dialed in for a while and, gotten the bullseye. Who cares? The point is, I got it to go to 50 yards. But between maxed out elevation for height and a bunch of mil dots involved, we hit 50 yards. Now, it's not so much the gun that's the issue. It actually partially is the gun, but it's also the scope, right? So to get more elevation with basically a shorter range gun, you need to get a set of scope rings where you can pitch the back end up and the front end down to give you a lot more MOI or MOA, okay, or clicks, right, to get you more elevation. And these adapters can be quite costly. The one kit I was looking at that I really liked was about 300 bucks by the time all is said and done at the end of the day. But another YouTuber got me onto another set at Airgun Source that is actually about $80, will do the exact same thing, and it's a split ring system, which will work out perfect. So we are going to definitely revisit going to 73 yards next summer, okay, with that gun. That is going to be a hoot once I get those rings on there. And it's going to give me a boatload of capabilities that I never had before for getting longer range. Okay, but guns are actually limited on range, by the way, until you start messing with optics with them. Then you can get more range out of the gun, but you're going to lose just horsepower in the end for your target. Okay, so at 100 yards, for example, the Diana probably would be great for punching paper, maybe tin cans a little bit, maybe. Hard to say. I don't know. We'll have to see what we try at 73 yards and see what kind of power that pellet still has in it. But do yourself a huge, massive favor and stay away from these things, especially the cheap ones out of China. They're the worst. This was a Chinese set, I admit fully, yes, they're from China. But I've seen these not in China at other businesses too, but they're probably from the same store. They probably just bought oh look, Wish got a deal on, let's make some profit. Stores can do that. Okay, wouldn't be the first time, you know. Cheap is cheap, and people like cheap. And this was a cheap solution, but this cheap solution is not very compatible out there with 11mm dovetails. Although it said 11mm dovetail adapter to Picatinny, and yeah, I've tried even, you know, I literally, not kidding you, I mounted this thing up carefully in a vise, like very carefully so not to damage it, and I tried to actually stretch them a bit. You know, take the screws out and stretch them a little bit, just a bit, you know, because it's all I'm missing is just a little tiny bit. Forget it, ain't gonna work. And I can't take any meat off the edges or it won't clamp to the dovetail. This is another problem, right? And some dovetails are cut really nice with deep areas, so yeah, you could do it in that case. But a majority of the dovetails that are out there are very finite on the edgings and not a lot of depth in on them. So yeah, it's kind of really, it's a tricky business doing that, right? So that's why I recommended the ones that I did that I showed you on the tablet. Do check them out. Check out D&L Air Guns. Check out Air Gun Source. If you're in Canada, there's also other stores, I'm sure, that could carry these things. I don't know. Maybe your local Canadian Tire might have an adapter. I didn't look close enough last time I was in Canadian Tire to see. However, I'm sure they probably have something there, but if not, well, hey, go online. Besides, you can save a lot more money shopping online than you can at Canadian Tire for optic stuff, that's for sure. We know how much they like to overcharge for things at times. That's why the sales are the best time to go to Canadian Tire. But that being said, our next video that we do in discussion, I don't know when, but in discussion, is going to be more about fixed parallax versus adjustable optical scopes. We're going to talk about cheap stuff. We're going to talk about the more expensive stuff. We're going to talk about, you know, do you get more when you pay more? Which, just as a little spoiler alert, doesn't always happen. Very rare, in fact. On that note, I'm taking off. I hope the guy who needed this video got a lot out of it, and everybody else who may have the same kind of question gets a lot out of this video. And if you do have any questions, you know where they go in the comments below. So, hey, feel free, throw them in there, and I'll do the very best I can to answer them. I don't know everything, but I do know quite a lot. What I don't know, I tend to do a little bit of research on, or a lot of research, depending on what it is and what I need to know. And I can likely help you at least guide you toward the right direction. But in the meantime, thanks again for watching. If you're not subscribed, please do so. Smash the bell for notifications so you get the next uploads and all future uploads. Do also scoop around my channel. There's over 3,000 videos of all kinds of stuff and tons of gun stuff for you gunner guys like me. See ya!